Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're doing something a little bit different in that we are looking at food, our foods. We've got two new shrimp foods. This one, Neocaridina, low phosphorus greens. And then this one, extreme protein. We're going to start with this one. This is the most important one. This is the one that feeds shrimp naturally. It does that by feeding the biofilm. That's right. Now, we did put a short up which shows why we chose spinach, nettle, this and the other to extract the minerals that shrimp need to grow and be healthy. I'll just tag that on the end. We're not talking about that now. What we're talking about is why it is the way it is. Now, these are the prototype pots that I've still got, hence no label. This is a very fine powder. And the reason for that is because we want this to get absolutely everywhere. Because we all know that biofilm grows on absolutely everything. But also because sometimes shrimp don't want to come out to find food. So if you're just feeding pellets, we don't need that. Now this, because it's a powder, is much better suited to sand aquariums than gravel, because it will fall down between the gravel. It's not going to cause too many issues there, but if you overfeed, it is going to cause an issue eventually. So we run all our shrimp tanks on sand. It just makes more sense to us. And we like to feed powdered foods. Now, why powdered? It reaches everywhere. Sometimes shrimp don't want to come out. Little baby shrimplets, you may have heard before, they're very territorial. Find it a lot. People say, oh, my shrimp aren't breeding. Like, yeah, they are. You've seen them have eggs, and then they don't have eggs. So there's baby shrimp in there somewhere. The problem is they're starving to death because you're not getting the food to them. You're expecting them to travel all the way across their tank with their tiny little legs to go and get this piece of food that they don't even know what it is. They're too scared to come out. They don't want to leave their little safe area. You know, they've lasted these 3 days of their life in that area. They're not leaving until they know it's safe over there. They're going to wait for Derek next door to go. So by doing a powderized food, you get the food to the shrimp, whether they've just molted, whether they're babies, whatever it is. It is kind of hydrophobic, which is absolutely brilliant. So with the surface tension, I mean, it's not designed to be hydrophobic. It's just because of the size, the micron size of this, and the surface tension of water you sprinkle on instantly spreads out, much like any of the fry powders do. But it does stick around in the water column for a long time, which ensures that it spreads everywhere. Because if it just came in and rained down, that's no good. It's going to miss under all the ledges. So it will swirl around and it will stay waterborne for quite some time. Excellent. That's what we like. So let's have a little look at the ingredients. Neocaridina shrimp food, wheat flour, cornstarch, and then we're on to the herbs, the alfalfa, the seaweed, blah, 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 blah. Sugar. Now, if you know anything about foods, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, they're fillers and bulkers. But are they? If it was a pellet, I would agree with you. Have a look at like koi food. Yeah, the reason that stuff's cheap for half a hundredweight is because it is just flour. Now, koi don't need flour. Shrimp, on the other hand. See, when we're feeding the biofilm to feed shrimp naturally, we need to be able to feed this biofilm effectively. We want the maximum amount of biofilm for what we're feeding, and we want it quickly. You know, we're a generation of instant gratification. So we all know the trick about building the biofilm up on your botanicals faster before you put them in the tank. You add sugar. If you didn't know that, okay. If you don't know and you're trying to add the biofilm quickly to the leaves before you add them to your tank to feed your shrimp, you put your leaves in a water solution with a little bit of brown sugar. The biofilm will form much quicker and much thicker. Bang it in, feast for all. Okay? But what we're doing is we're doing that in your tank with this. So we have a small amount of sugar in there. Now what that does is that gets in and the bacteria can immediately start consuming that because it is just essentially complex sugar. Okay, so it's breaking that down and eating it. Excellent. Now we've got wheat flour and cornstarch. Now both of these can be high GI or low GI, depending on what type you have and if you've heated it, baked it, or it's raw, right? So we have a low GI and a high GI carbohydrate. Why is that important? Think of it like you're going to the gym. The instant sugar in the tank is a very small amount, right? I'm not saying go downstairs and chuck half a tablespoon of silver spoon in there. Don't do that. The instant sugar is like your pre-workout. Gets in your blood nice and quick, fast acting. Then we've got mid-workout, you're taking your intra-workout amino acid drink. That's your first carbohydrate. And then your slow carbohydrate is your post-workout electrolyte drink that you would normally take to replace your minerals. So we've got 3 stages of feeding the bacteria. You think, well, the bacteria don't want carbohydrates, they want sugars. Well, amylase. Amylase is an enzyme that lives in the biofilm in your aquarium. That likes to break down carbohydrates into sugars. So by feeding this in those ratios, not that one, by feeding this in those ratios in a delivery method that spreads around the tank, that gets it to where it needs to be and feeds them in the way they should be fed. Also with all the greens for the minerals, which I'll put that on afterwards in case you haven't seen it, because otherwise it's not a full rundown of ingredients. So that, in a nutshell, simple explanation, is low phosphorus greens. Why low phosphorus? Because we don't want to encourage any more algae, do we? We just don't. Extreme protein. This is 63% protein. Now, I will tell you, it smells, and it's a powder. It is one of the most natural foods you are ever going to get your hands on. God, it does smell. Don't spill it on the carpet. All right, we include these scoops. This is not a measure. All right, for me to feed one of those, which is a 1 ml scoop, it would have to be a 500-litre tank of fry, I'm sure. See, this is not exclusively a shrimp product. It was designed to go hand in hand with the Neocaridina food because, like, much of the big breeders in Taiwan, they've got it sorted. Well, not necessarily just Taiwan, Asia. These big Asian breeders who are breeding the fish that your shop are buying and then trying to sell to you, they feed veg-based, meat-based, veg-based, meat-based, all the way through. Now, you haven't got that many shrimp because they've got thousands per tank. So maybe you could Monday feed veg, Wednesday feed meat-based, Friday back to veg, Sunday, and you just take a day off between them all right? So this stuff is essentially your protein hit. Now, they don't come as a twin pack because you don't need to buy this. You just don't. Any protein hit will do. This is 63% protein though, and I doubt whatever your feeding is. But you could simply just feed your shrimp a couple of bloodworms and that'll be their protein hit. This though, this is whole food. It's got 2 ingredients. This is 50% freeze-dried whole fish and 50% freeze-dried whole shrimp. And the whole is the important there. You look on the back of your food packets, it'll say like fish and fish derivatives, and we use those in others like Breeders' Greens. But when it comes to this one, this is your pure as protein can be without being 100% protein. This is your pure protein food. So the fish and fish derivatives, where you see like bone meal, blood meal, fish meal, that's the stuff nobody else wanted. That is a powderized bit of tendons and sinews, and not that the nutrition isn't in it, but it's just not the best, or perhaps maybe it's not as easily digestible, it's not as usable. There's reasons nobody else wants it. In this one though, in your extreme protein, it's got everything. Everything a fish is made of is in there. And it's freeze-dried for freshness. Same goes for the shrimp. So that is those two. That is our answer for shrimp food. At the moment. There are 2 more which are just actually awaiting packaging. Because whilst this is very, very important to feed your shrimp and allow the breeding to happen properly and on a better scale than feeding just pellets, we are going to eventually give you 2 pellet options, an insect-based one and a plant-based one. And the reason for that is, whilst this is great, absolutely fantastic, we breed lots and lots of shrimp because of this. The one you've seen before on the channel is an inspection tank where we look at inspect a small number of shrimp that are breeding slower, because there's no heater or anything in there. And we select the best. And then we start a new breeding colony with those best. Now, in order to be able to see them, we need an inspection food. So we need to be able to drop a pellet in that they cannot resist and will come across the tank full. So we have 2 of those that we will be releasing at some point later on, maybe this year, early next year. They're ready to go, but it's packaging and that sort of stuff. If you're involved in any of that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this extreme protein, it hasn't got Neocaridina written on it anywhere. And it was originally, the concept was that they would go together. You know, these go together, but you don't need this one. Everything works fine with this one and any other protein source. But when we sent it out to a bunch of people who I genuinely do not know to ask for their thoughts on it, the amount of ways that people came back that they were using it and loving it when it had nothing to do with shrimp was just like, okay, so maybe I need to think about this as, forget the shrimp, this is just quality protein, just flat out quality protein. We had somebody who was adding it to Repashy, the gel food. If you don't know Repashy, it's it's like a jelly. You add boiling water. We've got a video on how we make it. We do a lot of Repashy, a lot. We get through nearly 3/4 of a liter a day on a Repashy feeding day. That is a lot of Repashy. But somebody was adding this to Repashy, and they swear, I don't know which Repashy it was off the top of my head, I probably should take more notice, but they swear that their Corydoras barbatus were breeding more often and better hatch rates. So that's one way somebody else has used it. These guys behind me, the Bosemani fry, they've been getting it because somebody else was telling me that they were using it as literally a protein hit for fry. And with it being very, very fine, I really need to put labels on these. With it being very, very fine, that is entirely possible. But I will say this is not as fine as Repashy. It may not even be, in fact, it's not. It's not as fine as Hikari First Bites. So this would not be great for newborn rainbows. Once they get to about nearly a centimeter in size, yes, you could definitely start feeding that. And that's what we did. As soon as that feedback came back, I was like, why have I not tested that on the 100 Bosemani rainbows or the 100 Furcatus rainbows or 100 Luminatus? And they grow like hellfire. You need to make sure you stay on top of your water changes, as always, because lots of small fish growing up in a restricted environment, like a 20-gallon, is always going to have hormone issues, so you need to dilute those out. But yes, it has more uses than my blinkers allowed me to sort of create it for. And it's not just me, the guys who actually manufacture it, their input on the formulation of this one, low phosphorus greens, was invaluable, because it was a simple case of, do you want a mineral pack? Like, they need minerals, but they're sort of like chemically derived, if you know what I mean. Like, in the same way that everybody knows table salt is just like a chemical, rather than like sea salt is natural. I was like, how can we achieve that? And to be fair, they taught me through everything that I had access to through them, what they would recommend, and then just what ratios do I want it. So I'm not saying like I'm a nutritional genius for fish. Absolutely not. I just knew what I wanted it to do, and between us and them, we've got it. We have absolutely got it. I think it offers pretty good value for money. I genuinely do. Shrimp cuisine from Hikari, generally about £3.50 for about 12 grams. Now, it is a different style that is very small pellets, absolutely. We are going to be a little bit more than that, because if this ever becomes popular, it will become cheaper. Obviously, economy of scale, that sort of thing. But this is 40 grams. And because we're feeding the biofilm, not the shrimp individually, This goes a lot further, and I mean a lot further. If you've only got 1 or 2 shrimp tanks, this could last you a year. I'm not joking. You're just letting them feed on the biofilm with their occasional protein treats. That could probably last you a year. So it's not far off. It's not going to be far off the retail of that, but yeah, you are getting nearly 4 times as much. So I think that's pretty good value for money, especially for what you get out of it. And because the biofilm is everywhere, the shrimp just, yeah. But we got 2 more shrimp foods in the works. Like I said, that'll be later this year or next year. And that is basically just about gathering the shrimp together so that you can see them, inspect them, whether it's that you're looking for the best ones to drag out and breed in a new colony like we do, or you're inspecting for diseases like we do, whether you're looking for colonies, that sort of stuff, shell erosion, anything, whatever reason you may need to get shrimp together, promise you, there's some good foods out there, but shrimp that have never seen those 2 prototypes, bang, straight on it. So I am really, really excited for those. I love them, absolutely love them. It makes you kind of want to feed those all the time, because it's just, and I understand why people feed shrimp lollies and all that sort of stuff. That's a novelty. The shrimp don't need it on a stick. That's for you, cool. We used to make shrimp lollies, and then it's just, if you don't get the stick out, because we run all sand tanks, can get lost in the sand eventually, and you got a rotting stick, and yeah, it's fun the first couple of times, but no, the more natural way is definitely the way that we prefer. So anyway, that is the run through of those. These will be available for the first time if you are anywhere local to Gloucestershire at Fish Fate in Gloucester. Gloucester 2025 is the first one in Gloucester. Needs to be a success, or we're not going to bring it back. Simple as that. Fish Shop Matt's going to be there. He's going to be answering questions and just chatting to everybody. And if you think, well, I got nothing to ask him, don't worry, he's going to stand there. You will end up having one of the most interesting or strange chats of your life with a genuinely lovable bloke. There's a reason he's got as far as he has. And we're doing our 10% off for Facebook followers. And also, if you are both a Facebook follower and a YouTube subscriber, and you happen to be stood in front of us on the day, you will not only get 10% off anything you buy for being a Facebook follower, but you will also get 1 free entry into the mystery October prize draw for every £10 you spend. I guess that's it. I've got not a lot of time now before people start to come and pick up their shrimp. I think the first one's in at 4:30. Yes, I've got a lot of oranges and reds leaving us today, so I need to go and get ready for that. Another cup of tea, I think, because I didn't get much sleep. But until I see you in the next one, everybody, please find a reason to make a stranger smile. And if you can, just stand back and enjoy something that you've been taking for granted. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next one.
Shrimp also need their plants and minerals, so we take alfalfa for iron and calcium, seaweed for calcium and zinc, nettle for magnesium and calcium, a drizzle of rapeseed for omegas 3 and 6, and spinach for copper. Yes, copper. Despite what you may have heard about copper, it is in fact crucial in the diet of shrimp. Think of it like water. We must consume water, but too much will kill you. A dash of Hematococcus for astaxanthin, and finally, a garnish of mannan oligosaccharides for the prebiotic effects. Hey presto, low phosphorus greens for Neocaridina from wild shrimp. Why low phosphorus? Well, we wouldn't want to encourage too much algae now, would we?